Hello everyone, welcome to Gelvin Valley for Farming Simulator 15, created by Wild Wes, still enjoying the map, and right now trying to ascend this merciless tall hill that he has here with the promise and lure of free grass at the top. We've been up here before, but it's a brutal slog to get up the hill. So that's what we're trying to do. And we'll get up here and make some more bales. We've already cut and windrowed clear over at the radio tower field. Way up over here. And so now we are going to work on this area. I can get up the hill. And you know something? I thought I had in here somewhere. Outline. Tower. Yeah, maybe I don't. For some reason I thought I had a course plate, and I wonder if I started making one once upon a time and just quit because I'd have to do it for every step of the way. I don't know. So, for the moment, you know what? That hailstorm coming is probably going to take it out. Unless I have some diligence here to get my hay in and done before the hail hits tomorrow. It's going to take out some of my windrows. Yes, Russell, I know this probably isn't an inline mower, but well, it's bouncier and rougher than a cob in here. But I'm gonna just keep it this way. I know technically I probably should have it out to the side. That would be the appropriate way to use this mower. But I think this will probably work better for me if I just keep it in line. Once again, these hills are brutally steep in here. Although I don't think this one is quite as bad as the radio tower field, so all I'm trying to do is get some free grass, make a few lousy bales to try to earn a buck, and as you can see I'm already going in the negative. And you know, this berm in here, it appears there would be some other mowable areas, but Wes has nicely cordoned those off. I would have to edit the map to somehow figure out a way to get myself over these, but don't think I will. I just stay in this area here. I guess it looks insane enough trying to mow this up here. But I'm giving it a go. Actually, I'm seeing a bunch of remnants for hay that's lurking around since the last time. Of course, right now we were on the map border. I tried to put a rock in there to kind of hide the fact that it's a border, but it doesn't look the best. So it confirms for me again that it's really hard for a mapper to seamlessly create a border edge when it isn't water. You know, I'm convinced that's part of the reason the Giants' own map, Clearback Farm Sim 09, was made on an island. It's because the border could be water, which would extend out. There was no need to create anything special. It didn't have to look weird and all that. So, but whatever. We all know it's just a game. It's just part of suspending reality, while we're in here. So I was trying to help Wes out. And I don't think it worked very well. By putting a few big rocks, on the border edge, where previously there wasn't any. And certainly don't mean to imply the map is deficient in any way. Definitely not. It's just extremely difficult, for a mapper to do the borders. A little bit easier here to do the second round. Probably in a very underpowered tractor pulling something like this off, but oh well. Well, it's a beautiful summer evening here as I'm recording this in real life. Well, I think it's summer. Yeah, I guess it is. It's June 22nd. I think that officially puts us over or into summer. So I had a project here the other evening, which has nothing to do with summer, but maybe some people listening to this have had to wrestle with the same thing. A little over a year ago, we purchased a new dishwasher. The one we had went kaput. I don't remember how long it lasted. It's probably somewhere between 5 and 10 years. The old timers, and I'm getting that way myself, will say they just don't make things like they used to, and it's true. We've probably all come across the old refrigerator that was manufactured in the 50s and it still works, or freezer still ticking, and it just doesn't do that anymore for appliances. And it's one thing to blame the manufacturers because they're not making it as nice, and they seem to design things to blow up or go bad right when the warranty's over, that kind of thing. So it's tempting to blame them for corporate greed and profits and blah blah blah. But I accept part of the blame as a consumer too. Where we want things cheap. Or, we don't call it cheap. Oh no, we wouldn't use those words. We would say, well, something is reasonably priced, That's our code word for cheap. And, so many consumers anymore, we just don't want to spend money on getting something, like an appliance. And so these companies, that's part of the impetus too, they're building them cheaper. And when you pay less, there's another adage, you pay for what you get. And that's a true one too, if you're only willing to pay pennies, well, then prepare to receive pennies in return. So I think there's multiple reasons as to why things aren't built, the quality that they used to have. The trouble is, I would like to buy quality, and it's just hard to find anymore. So maybe I told my wife, what we just went through recently with a dishwasher again, that if this happens again and the thing breaks, that maybe next time we need to go industrial. I don't know what they get for, when you go to an industrial food kitchen. I mean, surely they don't tolerate a chintzy dishwasher. They expect it to work, and to work every time, and to last, not break, and so forth and so on. But for all I know, that's become cheap too, and maybe it's just price prohibitive. I don't know. All I do know is the dishwasher we did have, and that was installed a little over a year ago, it went kaput, and it is no more. Which was just very disappointing. This last time, again, one example of cheap behavior. My wife and I, it's like, well, the last dishwasher lasted for 5-10 years, whatever it was. I almost think it was 10. It was a good run. And so we figured, well, if that's how long, they truly last, why would we need to buy a warranty? An extended warranty for, I don't know what it was, 3 years, 5 years. And so we decided not to get it. Well, we'd have been money ahead if we had, because now, I think the manufacturer's warranty was a single year. And, when this thing broke, I was telling my wife, because she hired a repairman to come out, and he basically told us, the cost of the repair is almost the cost of a new machine. So it's like, okay, well, we get it. But I was asking her, I says, what do you mean, a year? We haven't even had this a year. And she said, well, yeah, technically we have. I guess just more time passes by, than a person ever realizes. So, but it was barely a year, and so we just outran the manufacturer's warranty time period, and the thing is busted. So we gotta buy a brand new unit. So, it's one of those things that's just frustrating because, I don't want to go through this every time. The last unit that we had in here, we had the people themselves install it, and so they put it all in. I figured, well, if the people you buy it from install it, then maybe it'll be a little better. So, but I don't know. Anyway, we ordered a new one. They dropped it off at the house, and so this time, it's like an extra $200 to have someone install it. I said, okay, hon, I'll just try to install it. I think I've done it before in the past. It's and it wasn't that hard. The people that we got a new one from, they took the old one, and so I uninstalled it. Well, and as anybody I'm sure knows, de-installation is much easier than installation, because of course you don't care, about the parts or anything. So really it's pretty simple. It goes in this hole under the counter, and there's a water input coming to it. There's a water exit going into the drain. And then you have 3 wires to hook it up. The black one, the white one, and the green one, to say it that way. But yeah, the hot wire, the ground, and the return, or whatever the technical terms are. So really super easy to pull it apart, just undoing all that. And really, at the end of the day, that's all, that it takes to hook it up. But anyway, so we get this new unit, comes in on this pallet, and so initially I thought, well, be a typical man, just ignore the instructions. And then I thought, no, you better not. You want to do this right. I mean, this is an expensive machine, so I dig up the instructions and find the ones in English and the language that I don't understand. And that right there should tell you something. This machine is mass marketed around the world, so it's set to go into many, many different places and cultures. I suppose on the one hand, that's good. I'm happy everybody can have a dishwasher. But on the other hand, it also says this is a cheap machine if it's going to everywhere around the world. And it's just the way, I don't know, that's just kind of how it hit me. But anyway, I found the instructions. It said, all the way at the start, from getting the wood undercarriage off, the pallet it was sitting bolted to. And so I start digging into these steps and doing what I can on it. And I didn't get very far, and there was a part missing. And it's this little angle piece that gets attached to the underside that the water intake goes into. And so one side of it attaches there, and then the other side attaches to the hose coming out from the wall in our home. So I'm looking for this part all over. I can't find it. It isn't in there. And so I call a number that my wife had for the purchase, and one of those 800 numbers. You sit on hold for a while. Finally get someone. Pretty heavy accent on the person, so it was difficult to understand her, but I think we eventually understood. And so I basically just told her, I said, it appears we're missing a part. I told her the step, the step number, the instructions. I gave her the order number and everything, gave her everything she asked for. And she put me on hold for an interminable amount of time. I, at some point, wonder if I should just hang up and try again, but I'm glad I hung on. Although the options she gave me weren't exactly palatable. So she said, because one of the things I said is like, well, do we need to have one of your guys come out? There's a big box store. I won't name them. Everybody knows who they are. Should I have your guys come out? And I figured, well, maybe they have spare parts on their tray or in their truck, and so they would just go out. They would find an elbow if it wasn't in the kit, blah blah blah, and have no problems. Well, she told me that at her installers, they use the kit too. So if they came out and tried to do this, they also would discover that a part was missing, and they would be in the same fix. So I'm like, well, great, because the agreement with the store is you have 48 hours to get the dishwasher installed, and if there's any problems during that time period, that they'll replace it or help you with it or whatever. But as soon as the 48 hours passes, well, then you're on your own. So I know we got a limited time. This is the first night, so this is the first 24 hours. And I said, well, if your guys can't do it, I said, you have extra parts in the store. She told me, no, we don't carry those parts. I'm like, what? What in the world? But you're selling these. And anyways, she said they don't have it. So she said the other alternative you'd have is to call the manufacturer of the unit. And so she gives me the phone number to call the real manufacturer of the dishwasher. And so, but of course, by the time I call I'm at home. This is after working hours, and I'm trying to install it at home. And so I can't call this number. They're not there. It's on the eastern seaboard of the U.S., so it's 3 time zones ahead of me, already at night or whatever. And see, by the time I was doing this, it was probably, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so Pacific Standard Time or whatever, it was probably about 8 o'clock at night. Anyway, just too late. So my wife and I were talking later. It's like, well, we could call these people, but they would have to literally, somehow get us the part same day, because this would be the next day, the second day of the 48-hour period. And it wasn't feasible. So we talked it over, after I hung up on the call. And I said, okay, tomorrow, can you just call these people? Oh, yeah. Well, the kicker was this. The lady over the phone told me because she realized I was a tight turnaround. She says, if neither of these are good alternatives for you, what you'll need to do is call the store and have them bring you a brand new unit with a brand new installation kit. And I was like, are you serious? They don't have a part, so they need to, bring us a brand new dishwasher, which we already have there, and haul this one off and junk it? That just seemed ridiculous to me. So anyway, after talking it over with my wife, we figured that probably was the only reasonable alternative, was to get a brand new unit, restart the 48-hour clock. And I said, you know what? This time, let's pay the money. We'll have them install it. So when I went to bed that first night, that was kind of, what we planned to do. And so my wife then, the following day, she calls them. And lo and behold, it's all who you talk to. I think she called them at the store, to initiate this. And the lady she talked to there, got to pick the right lady evidently, tells her, well, I think we have the parts. So my wife goes to the store, and sure enough, they have the parts in another kit. And this is kind of the part of the story that bugs me a little bit. The lady at the store was very nice, and what she told my wife, she said, I'll tell you what, you already have a unit at home. I'll just take the parts out of this kit and give them to you, and then I'll just tell the store or the people that the parts were missing out of this kit. And my wife is telling me that it's like, what? I don't feel really good about that, but that's what the person at the store did. She gave the parts to my wife for free and sent her on her way. And I mean, this is probably you could launch into a philosophical debate. This is a big store, and it impresses me that the lady, whoever she was, felt empowered to help a customer in this fashion. Usually, big companies like this, they're stuck in corporate bureaucracy. They may or may not empower their people to help someone out, or would just create a whole lot of red tape. So I gotta say, it impresses me that she did this, and you know what? It'll keep me shopping at their store. Maybe not for a dishwasher in the future, but I do appreciate, that she was able to help us with this. So sent my wife home with a part, and so this was unbeknownst to me. I went to work. I was fully expecting to come home and find a brand new dishwasher installed. She meets me at the gate, or at the door rather, not the gate, and basically informs me how I'm going to spend my evening, which is installing the dishwasher for real. So, well, I basically then just got home and had to continue on, if you will, now, where I was in the instructions before, putting it in this elbow and continuing on from there. And it took me a fair while. It took, I'm an accountant. I mean, everybody here knows that. And so I like to say I don't have skills in my hands. My sons do. I can run a 10 key, no problem, to add and subtract numbers and all that. But in terms of mechanical things, it's intimidating to me. But I was willing to try, for our family because I think, with reasonable intelligence, you can put, am I down all the way? Okay, I am down all the way, but here we go. Start taking around. With reasonable intelligence, you should be able to figure out how to install something. And kind of like I mentioned before, it really is, the input, the output, and the power. But there are lots of other steps kind of along the way, that I hadn't seen before, not weather stripping, but just fitting it into the cabinet, doing everything in the right order, trying to do it in the right way. It's like I wish I would have had those instructions, when I was taking the old one out. Probably would have been way easier, and I would have done it right instead of maybe pulling on some things that should not have had pressure put on them and so forth. But yeah, probably after, I don't know, I spent maybe a couple of hours on it, getting it all hooked up. Of course, the other thing I'm having to do while I'm doing this, because I was too dumb the night before, was go find tools. Well, I used to have a toolbox in the house. My boys have run off with most of my tools, so I had to go find them out in our little shops. I was going back and forth between here and the house, and of course, the tool you need is always the one, always the one that's toughest to find. And so some of it was just that, trying to locate it as to where it was out there. Because it was varied, the tools. I mean, some of it is wrenches, some of it, they don't seem to use, these are other things I don't understand. Some of it is handled, well, literally the handle. You put the handle on with something called an Allen wrench. This little hexagonal shaped tool to get turned here, that helps you turn certain nuts, and some of what they had required a Phillips screwdriver. Some of what they required needed a regular flathead screwdriver, or whatever the terminology is. And so all these different parts, and some of them kind of, not everybody just has them. You know, for example, the night before, pulling the dishwasher out of the pallet thing that it was attached to required, and then this is in imperial terms, a 15/16 end wrench. Well, my word, 15/16? Do they think every consumer just happens to have one of those in their back pocket? Why not at least make it a single inch? But no, they got to make it some screwball uh, dimension. So, and it was kind of the way in other parts. And even in saying that, I don't mean to totally complain, because I do think they did their best in many other areas, to dumb it down as much as they could. But another thing I noticed with this unit too is the instructions didn't quite match or were for other types of units in addition to the one that, we had, to install. So a lot of times it was trying to decipher what they had in the instructions. It didn't quite look right and all that. So anyway, I was just glad eventually to get through it all and, get it all hooked up. And of course, I at least had the presence of mind. This is where a lot of us in Joe Q Public, and I am Joe Q Public, I'm a knucklehead just like anybody else out there. But this is where you can really get yourself in trouble. So I at least had the presence of mind to go turn the power off at the breaker panel, to this thing before dealing both de-installation and with what I was doing too. So let me see, is this that's probably not a good. Let's see if I can turn this way. Yeah, that ought to do it. There we go. Guys, I'm going to take over the other windrow a little bit, but that's all right. I'll leave this little nubbin on the end. But there was a lot of steps in there, so, I'm thankful to have been able to help keep the cook in our house happy. And I mean, my goodness, I'm motivated too. Otherwise, somebody's got to wash all them dishes, and if we don't have a machine to do it, I'm going to find myself getting dishpan hands. So it was good to get the tool fixed. And a part of me even feels bad kind of prattling on about all this. Like someone told me when we were talking this through, it's kind of, well, this is a first world problem. We are so doggone spoiled, whether in Western civilization, with the conveniences that we have, and to even have something like this to bellyache over. And my youngest son just got back from a church mission trip to Jamaica, working with some deaf people there, and people just disadvantaged, or don't, just by virtue of where God put them, where they were born to, just don't even have these things to complain about. So who am I to be spewing such nonsense? And I'm not ungrateful. I think what it is for me, it goes back to, like I say, my expertise is accounting. That's that's what I know how to do. So when mechanical type things break, I just feel, it makes me feel a little out of sorts, and I'll wonder if I'll be able to figure it out and all those kinds of things. So fortunately in this case, got it figured out, and it was gratifying to turn the power on, to do a couple test runs, and even more gratifying later to hear, my wife say, hey, that this installation is better than the one we had before on something I didn't even notice. There's the bell. One of the steps in there that I didn't realize until doing it myself was, there's feet, 4 of them on this thing under there, and to level the unit, and make it fit right in the under the counter, well, there's a little bit of work you gotta do. And the last one, when we had the people from the store install it, well, what do they care? It ain't their house, so if it's rubbing on the counter or rubbing on the doors beside the unit, well, what would they care? So anyways, I just tried to get it set in there so it would work decent, and I think it does. So anywho, I would love to hear in comments. I'm sure I'm not the only man who has had to fight with a dishwasher or wrestle some appliance, fix something when it isn't your area of expertise or what have you. So would love to hear what your better halves have asked you to do. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.